Hello and welcome. I'm Chiwah Slater, founder of EcoActive 101, and I welcome you to Team GreenSaver, the Edu-Action program for a sustainable Earth. Edu-Action? Education and action, learning and doing. If you're an adult or a high school student, this is the presentation for you. It is not recommended for younger teens or kids, but we do have a program for them. I'll fill you in on that at the end of this webinar, which will run about 40 minutes. At EcoActive 101, we are all about empowering families and friends to work with our team to safeguard our future. Why a team? Because teamwork gets things done, and it keeps the energy going to get more things done. Why families? I'll share a little of my own story with you, one I think you may relate to. A few years ago, my son said to me, "Mom, young people are angry at your generation for not addressing climate change back when there was time." Well, yes, he was spot on, but it didn't feel good to hear that. So that's what started me working to get families teaming up to save this planet. And if you don't have a family that's ready to get involved, as long as you recognize that young people deserve a future, we need you on our team. In this webinar, I'm going to cover some of the things that make Earth worth saving. What makes our climate crisis a true emergency? What needs to happen to save our kids' future? And what you and your family and friends can do about it. And before we're done, I'll tell you all about Team GreenSaver, the team that takes the pressure off and makes climate action fun and fulfilling for all. So let's get to it. Here's a short, punchy overview of Earth's predicament. Earth isn't doing so well, and it's because we're treating her badly. We know that for sure, and we know how to make her better. It's time for action now. We cannot cover the entire topic of climate change in half an hour. But before we're done, I promise to show you how you can get all of your questions answered and get all the support you need to take action as part of our team. Action that makes a difference you can feel down to your bone. We'll even make it fun. So be sure to stick around to the end for that, okay? Now here we have a few images to remind us why we care, why Earth is so very precious to us. Do you have a pet? Pets remind us that we have an obligation to care for all life, don't they? My housemate and I have a wonderful Shih Tzu Terrier mix. Her name is Precious because she's precious. When you think of all the precious life hanging in the balance, of how much is at stake here, that saving Earth is not just about saving people, it's about saving the animals and plants too, then you begin to realize that it's time to stand up for Earth, right? So, what's up with Earth is hurting big time. Why? Because her fast-growing population of humans tends to think of her as just a big rock, whose only purpose is to give us everything we want. In the name of progress, we've forged headlong into what many of us now recognize as the biggest crisis ever created, the climate crisis. Earth simply cannot let it go on anymore. To understand why, we need to look at the big picture. So let's start by taking a look at our Earth and our atmosphere and how the system operates. Here's a picture of Earth rolling around in space, surrounded by the very thin shell we call the atmosphere, the blue ring you see around the Earth in the picture here. Here we have an Earthling's view of the moon. The Earth and the moon are about the same distance from the sun, but they don't run at even close to the same temperatures. Moon temperatures swing from way below freezing during the night to over 400 degrees Fahrenheit at midday. That's enough to bake a potato. Thank heaven it's not like that on Earth, right? But why isn't it? Earth and Moon both receive the same amount of heat from the sun. Scientists tell us it's because of the difference in their atmospheres. Unlike the moon's atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere contains gases like carbon dioxide and methane and water and ozone that absorb heat. These are the famous greenhouse gases. It's thanks to them that the Earth stays warm enough to support life forms like us. Unfortunately, we are now putting out so much of these greenhouse gases that they're trapping way more heat than ever before. So the Earth is getting warmer and warmer. You know how you sweat on a hot, humid day? Well, what if you were forced to put on more clothes? A sweater, a jacket, and then a coat, and a parka, and maybe a blanket on top of all that, and then stay inside with the heater on. That's kind of how Earth is feeling right now. So what happens to all that heat that Earth is absorbing? Well, 93% of it goes straight into the ocean. And a warmer ocean melts the Arctic glaciers and ice floes, uncovering the darker land and ocean underneath, which then absorb more sunlight, causing still more heat retention. So the Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. I hear that Mrs. Claus took a trip to Hawaii last month to buy a new wardrobe for Santa. But joking aside, the melting of the Arctic ice causes sea levels to rise and creates more humidity, leading to increased rainfall and extreme storms like this hurricane, and to tremendous floods. Imagine walking out your front door into that. Not so far-fetched. Remember July 3rd, 2020 in Newport Beach, California? That's just a taste of what's coming for the folks on the West Coast. And when the rain falls on hot ground that is dried out too much to absorb water, then we end up with drought. Here we have two views of California's Folsom Lake. See all that exposed land in the picture on the right? That's how far the water receded over a 3-year drought. And drought brings more fires and a longer fire season. If you could take a ride on the temperature increase roller coaster, starting, say, 10,000 years ago and continuing until today, this is pretty much what that ride would look like. You can see how temperature trends have changed in modern times. They're now headed straight up, all because we're thickening the greenhouse gas layer. The worst offender by far is fossil fuels, the coal, oil, and natural gas we mine out of the earth, which give off carbon dioxide and methane. We still use fossil fuels, by the way, for about 80% of our manufacturing, and to heat our homes and run our vehicles, power our industry, and provide us with electricity, and for everything that's made of plastic. And it seems like everything pretty much is made of plastic these days, right? Coal and oil emit carbon dioxide. The methane comes from natural gas. And guess what? Not all of that natural gas comes from fossil fuels. A lot of it comes from, you guessed it, cow burps and farts. And when it comes to heating up the earth, methane is like carbon dioxide on steroids. Pound for pound, methane traps more than 20 times as much heat as carbon dioxide. It pretty much dissipates after 10 or 12 years, but right now, those 10 or 12 years are precious to us. Starting now, those are the same 10 or 12 years during which we need to reduce emissions every year by about 10%. Oops. Here we see how Earth temperatures have risen steadily since 1880. Unless we drastically cut emissions over the next 10 years, our Earth could warm up as much as 45 times faster than what happened coming out of the last ice age. Whoa! What would happen? Temperatures would shoot up overall, with sea levels rising drastically, way more storms and drought, poor food crops, more fires, a lot more allergies, awful air pollution, and more disease. And half of all vertebrate species would be extinct by the end of the century. And all of that would bring huge economic costs. I'm sorry to say it's too late to prevent climate change. It's already here. But what if we limit our emissions of heat-trapping greenhouse gases? Can we avoid most of the really bad impacts? Yes, we can. Will we? Well, that remains to be seen. And that brings us to part 2 of this presentation. What needs to happen? You see, technology is not really the problem. It's more of a human problem. It's our actions that are threatening us and all Earth life. It's obvious that we have to change. Our first order of business must be to put leaders in place at all levels of government who are up on the climate emergency. We could use some earthquake protection. We've all heard about the Green New Deal, which includes switching to renewable energy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2030. The longer we wait to start, the bigger the annual increase required. That's why it's so important to get involved now. So you might ask, what is net zero? Well, you can think of net zero as a sort of safety net. Here's how it works. Fortunately for us, plants inhale carbon dioxide and exhale life-giving oxygen. You knew that, right? Yeah, and certain trees absorb carbon dioxide big time. So if we had enough of those trees to balance out the pollution that we create, we'd be safe. That's net zero. But we're losing trees as forests are cut down. We must stop deforestation, not just in the rainforests, but in all of our forests. Maybe you've seen that bumper sticker that says, "Think global, act local." While world leaders and national leaders are working on a global reset and a Green New Deal, many states and local communities are also working to create their own versions of a Green New Deal. And we need this kind of action, as well as action at the national and international level. Local and state elections have a big impact on decisions that affect climate change. So it's important to participate, at the very least to vote in every single election. In the United States, that means every 2 years. Those midterm elections are crucial for making sure we have a Congress that's committed to making industry accountable for its effects on Earth's ecosystem and to drastically cutting the use of fossil fuels. And they're crucial for electing the right local leaders who will put the right programs into place in our local communities and in our states. The most effective way to cut down on fossil fuels is through the carbon tax, forcing industry to pay for the damage it causes. The fossil fuel industry knows it's going to have to stop mining coal and oil and natural gas, but it wants to milk them for all they're worth first. One way they're milking them is through direct government subsidies. We need to get rid of these subsidies and channel that money into renewable energy. But ending direct subsidies of fossil fuels, while long overdue, won't increase prices at the gas pump by more than 2 or 3 cents a gallon. Not enough to make a dent in our driving habits. That's why it's so important to focus our energy on mandating a carbon tax and other pollution taxes, and on ways to get people to switch from driving to using rapid transit. So what can replace fossil fuel energy? Well, renewable sources like solar and wind, geothermal, hydroelectric, even the power of ocean waves. And what about nuclear energy? Well, some believe we need it, while others fear we can't count on humanity to manage radioactive waste for thousands of years. Count us in that latter group. 2/3 of the world's population now live in regions where the cheapest forms of electricity are solar and wind, and the cost of renewable energy has fallen dramatically in recent years. But there are 2 problems with solar and wind. First, they require storage for times when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. But we're continually seeing improvements in battery systems, and their cost is coming down, so that's being taken care of. The second problem with wind and solar is that we're currently reliant on fossil fuels to produce the materials to make the solar panels and the wind turbines. But solar panel manufacturers are now holding some of their production back to equip the plants that make the panels with solar. So that way they were moving away from dependence on fossil fuels. So these are very good things. In recent years, however, we have seen a huge increase in energy demand. Why is this? Why do we seem to need so much more energy now than we did 20 or 50 or 100 years ago? Well, make more energy available and expectations increase. 150 years ago, no one had a car or electricity. 100 years ago, they were luxuries. Today, we consider our computer and our smartphone, not to mention our refrigerator, our blender, our hairdryer, basic necessities, right? And now we're told we need 5G? And then what? 7G? 10G? When will it ever end? If we continue on this path, there is no way that renewable energy is going to replace fossil fuels. Either we find a way to overcome our collective addiction to growth, or it will overcome us. So, how do we scale back our tendency to demand more and better? I'd like to believe we would do it voluntarily, but looking at the past and the present makes that seem pretty far-fetched. Voluntarily cutting back on smartphone and computer use? Or what if you tell people to just say no to that cruise to the Bahamas that their friends are all signing up for? Not likely for most people. Not that we couldn't do it voluntarily, but it would take tremendous funding to mount a publicity campaign to make that happen. Way more than the government funds that financed the Smokey the Bear and the Every Litter Bit Hurts campaigns back in the 1950s. You may not remember those campaigns, you may not be old enough, but they made Americans more careful about fire safety and littering. They worked, along with legislation requiring a deposit on bottles and cans that was returned to you when you took them back to the store. There are lots of positive trends. One is the number of groups that are stepping up to plant billions of trees. Another bright spot is the new regenerative agriculture movement, a return to crop diversity and crop rotation that leads to more resilient soils and more nutrient-rich crops. Another positive trend is the growing popularity of electric cars. They're fun to drive, and with the new incentives, even a low-income family can afford one. Once we revamp the system to make the alternative energy industry self-reliant, electric vehicles will be the only way to go. You might consider switching your car out now for an electric car to get a head start on the game. Yet another positive is our growing tendency to eat less meat, especially beef, cutting down on the need to destroy rainforests to clear land for cattle grazing. And these are just a few of the many promising trends popping up in response to the threat of global warming. We pretty much know what we need to do, and we have most of the technology, and we're beginning to wake up to the need to change. So some of the good things I've just mentioned are things that you can help happen by making changes in your personal life. And some of them you can help by taking action to influence government and industry. We'll not only show you how, we'll do it with you. And for families, we'll provide relevant activities for the kids too. Fun ways to get the whole family learning and taking positive action together. Because regardless of the challenges facing us, there is plenty of reason to be hopeful about beating the climate crisis. So let's talk a little bit about hope, what it takes to make it real. Because hope by itself is just wishful thinking, isn't it? There's probably no Superman coming to save us. So that leaves the job of saving the earth to us, you and me. As Swedish youth activist Greta Thunberg told European parliamentary leaders, you can't just sit around waiting for hope to come. Hope is something you have to earn. The way to earn hope is through action. The only real, useful kind of hope, the only kind that stands a chance of making the needed difference, is to stop waiting, roll up our sleeves, and get to work on it now. Because the government's not going to do it for us unless we make them do it for us. That's just how it works. We have to ensure that the solutions we have actually get implemented worldwide. The most important thing you can do if you live in the United States is to vote in every election. We've already covered this, I know, but it merits saying a second time. And you know, another way that we vote is with our dollars. Every time you shop, you can vote for Earth by avoiding products packaged in throwaway plastics. Here's another way to vote with your dollars. Donate to one of the tree planting sites online, and they will plant trees in your name. And don't worry, we'll email you these links that you see here on the screen. You can also vote for Earth by switching to a meatless or low-beef diet. You can make or buy delicious vegetarian food, and tasty meat alternatives are now available even at the major fast food chains. The carbon footprint of the internet use is rapidly catching up to that of driving cars. Hard to believe, right? But it's true. Simple ways to vote green online include lowering the brightness of your computer monitor to 70%, unsubscribing from all those emails you never read, and downloading music and movie videos instead of streaming them. There are lots of other actions you can take in your personal life, like choosing a local vacation over an ocean-polluting cruise, whether that means camping out or luxuriating in a local resort. Other big impact things to do include actions to influence decision makers in government and industry. This can feel like drudge work if you do it alone. Texting, making calls, sending emails, sending letters in the mail. But as part of a team, it can be fun, and it's important. It's also important to influence other individuals to get active. Social media is a great tool for this. Okay, so why is it so important to team up to take a stand? I've already mentioned the benefit to parents in getting the family to work together in solidarity. Namely, it would be good to avoid creating a generation of resentful kids who turn into resentful adults. Parents want their kids to grow up with a positive outlook on life, not depressed about their rapidly disappearing future. Before COVID, National Public Radio did a mental health series that showed teachers and counselors reporting that teen depression is far worse now than it ever was before. Small wonder. They're watching their world move toward extinction and they don't see us doing anything about it. And it's not going to work for adults to try to solve that problem for them. They need to be part of the action. A united family is a powerful unit, and there's nothing like knowing that you're taking positive action to energize you and make you feel good about yourself. Of course, certain guidelines do need to be observed to maintain harmony throughout the process, especially for teenagers. I know you guys, you don't want to feel like you're under the thumb of your parents, right? It needs to feel like a partnership. There are some interesting studies of adults who grew up with activist parents. They show that those whose parents allowed their activism to keep them from spending time with their kids grew up to experience high rates of depression as adults. And adult children of armchair activists, like I was an armchair activist, a parent who spoke out at home but took very little real action. Children of parents like that reportedly also suffer from depression beyond the norm. The lesson here is that as parents, you want to find a middle ground. The obvious solution is to take real action that includes your kids in meaningful ways, and let them lead the way if they want to, because they're often better informed about Earth's predicament than we are, and they have a lot more at stake. In Team GreenSaver families, both the kids and the parents enjoy being acknowledged for their actions. We all energize each other to get this very big job done. And being part of a connected team is important even if you're not a parent or a teenager, because working alone can get very lonely. One reason we started Team GreenSaver was that we found that with a team to plan with and work with, a team to cheer us on, we were less likely to get discouraged or distracted. The strength that comes from having other like-minded souls to set a direction with, plan projects with, share your successes and even your failures with, is what makes working as a team so rewarding. You may be able to pull a team together like that from your current friends, or not. I mean, just because you're committed to helping set things right, that doesn't necessarily mean that your friends are, right? If they are, great. But what if they're not? It won't help to badger them about it. That's a guaranteed way to sour friendships. So we have an idea for you, one that will solve that problem. Oh, but hold on a minute while I make one other point. Earth's current predicament involves a highly complex set of issues. Climate change, pandemics, social justice, nuclear waste, 5G, and more. Everywhere you turn, the poop is hitting the fan. To be effective, you must stay informed. Let's say you decide to investigate solutions for plastics. Along the way, you come across some exciting information on electric cars, or how to be green on the internet, or the importance of going vegan, or the brutalizing of ethnic minorities, or how we're endangered by the politics of nuclear waste. Pretty soon, you're overwhelmed. You don't know what to tackle first, and you get discouraged. Your energy fizzles. After all, you're just one person. How can you have any impact? Even for an expert, it's hard to stay up on every aspect of keeping Earth livable, much less know what action to take next. So, as I said before, we have a solution for you. It's EcoActive 101's Team GreenSaver. Here's what we offer you. Regularly scheduled live action sessions every month, one for kids, one for young teens, and one for high school teens and adults, focusing on meaningful action and offering the team support you need to keep you productive. Then, on top of that, live webinars with the experts for adults and high school students to keep you up to date on different threats to Earth life and what you can do about them. And then there's the members-only website and Facebook group to stay in touch during the week and keep up on the latest action events. Now, this program isn't right for everyone. I recognize that. It's not right for you if you're not motivated to dive in and make a difference. And it's not right for you if you're unwilling to look at the ways you need to change your own life. Who is it right for? Well, it's perfect for families and adults who see the benefit of belonging to a team of action takers that makes taking action together fun and productive. Together, we can help move this world to net zero by 2030. Now, how do you join Team GreenSaver? Scroll down to the bottom of this page and click the I Like It button. You might want to read a few things along the way, or not, that's up to you. Then choose your membership level and sign up. It's pretty easy. Now, if you're not on the Team GreenSaver page, go to ecoactive101.com/JTGS. That's ecoactive101.com/JTGS. And that's JTGS as in Join Team GreenSaver. Then all you do is choose your membership level and sign up. If you enjoyed this webinar and perhaps learned something you can use, we hope to see you on Team GreenSaver.